I predict within 3 years that the rental condo market will collapse, maybe 5 years, between 3 and 5 years. We talked about that at the last class, but the short version is we don't have control over the condo fees, so you do not have control over your costs, but the government has put controls on your ability to rent, or to increase your rents, right? What is it next year? 2%? I think they just announced it. They announced it in July.
1.8.
I forget.
Maximum guideline?
Yeah.
1.8.
Again?
2019?
The same as last year?
Same as this year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
It didn't change.
Okay, so it didn't change.
Yeah.
All right.
We're comparing our notices already.
Yeah. Okay. So if it's 1.8%,
It's the same as last year.
what do the condo fees increase by on average?
Condo fees?
Yeah,
Well, probably 4 to 6%.
that's right. It's 3 to 5% actually.
Right.
By a whole, I researched that and that's the number that came up. So I'm not trying to adjust your number. I'm just saying that's why I came up with between 3 and 5%. So if your logic dictates that if your expenses go up by 5% and your rent goes up by 1.8%, how long will it take before your expenses overtake your income? But that's not going to be the real reason. What's happening is because of that, the people who buy properties, condos, typically a whole floor, they'll buy a whole floor from a condo developer, and a condo developer will not start putting a spade in the ground until when?
80% sold.
How much?
80%.
Correct. 80, well, pick a number, 75 to 80%, right? Until they've got at least 80% of those units sold and they've got that cash, because they're putting down 20% and they're using other people's money for the other 80%. Well, what percentage of a new condo building in downtown Toronto are sold to investors for the purpose of renting out?
Huge amount.
100%.
No,
No,
I'd say 50%.
maximum 50, between 30 and 50%. So let's keep the numbers simple. At 50%, all of those people are leaving because they can't make money. So the new condo investors that bought for rental purposes are gone. So now you've got a whole whack of inventory that's available. So the buyers who are homeowners, there's going to be a lot of inventory available. But they've got to buy those one and sell them one at a time. The condo developers aren't selling floors at a time, they're selling one at a time. So instead of taking 2 or 3 years to sell a property, how long do you think it's going to take? Probably twice as long.
So you're seeing condo prices are going to go down?
No, condo prices will not go down because the buyers who move in are going to still keep the prices up because it's such a high demand. But I'm saying that the rental market will disappear, which means vacancy rates are going to crash even further. We're down at 1%. In some cities, lower than 1%. Barrie is almost 0. When there's no rental condos because the investors have all left and are looking for other properties, and the people who own those condos are now owner-occupiers, they own the condos, where are those people who used to live in rental condos going to go? There's nowhere to go because nobody's building this stuff.
Purpose-built rentals.
Purpose-built rentals, but who's building those? 3,000 units were added. How many people came to Ontario? In the last decade?
Sorry?
4 million.
Is that how many?
Yeah, or maybe the last 25 years. Or whatever it is, it doesn't matter what the number is. In the last 25 years, let's say it was 4 million people that have come to Ontario, and we've added maybe 10,000 or 15,000 units net. I have the numbers in the book. I forget what they are.
For secondary suites, for
Well,
actually to produce.
But that's 10 to 15,000 purpose-built units.
How many?
The 10 to 15,000 purpose-built net units were added. Purpose-built
In Ontario.
in Ontario.
Last year.
No, over 25 years. So you say, well, wait a minute, that number doesn't make any sense. And the number does make sense because the slack was picked up by all the condos. And I don't have numbers for condos, but almost all of the new rentals are condos and not purpose-built buildings. So when the condo market disappears, nobody of any consequential numbers of purpose-built properties have been built. I think 3,000 or something were added, which is the largest number in the last decade for any one year. I've got numbers here that show that only 400 or 500 were built in some years in the Greater Toronto Area. But you've got hundreds of thousands of people. Toronto Star last year published that 167,000 families are waiting for a place to move into on the social services list. 7,000 families in Ontario, assume 2.2 kids as the norm. That's almost 500,000 individuals waiting for an affordable housing place to live. Waiting, not in the system, waiting to get into the system.
They're currently renting and waiting for them to get.
Or doing something else, or living off, living in hostels and temporary homes, or living with their families, or any number of things.